Are vintage cars good investments? That's going to be the topic of today's video. Now, everyone knows that most cars depreciate in value. If you buy the average car completely new, it loses value almost the second you take it out of the garage. However, a lot of people know that vintage cars tend to actually gain in value over time. Certain kinds of vintage cars actually retain their value. However, if you look at this statistically, usually they gain value by about 3 to 4% a year. But then when you also take away the costs like insurance and driving it and so on, then it's much less than that even. So at the end of the day, it doesn't compete with, say, most stock market investments or even certain types of real estate. However, what is true is if this is your hobby, you could actually make money from that hobby. But it's an illiquid investment, which is hard to sell. That might change over time because with new technology, including blockchain, it might be easier to buy and sell this online in a more liquid way. In other words, you could just buy and sell by clicking one or two buttons. But as it is, most people are buying the physical product. It's hard to sell in some cases in that case. It can also break down. You never know, right? It could completely fail, right? If you buy a vintage car, if you spend $100,000 on vintage cars, there's even a chance that something goes wrong and parts need to be fixed and that adds to the cost, or like in a worst case scenario, you just can't get it to work again, in which case you've lost all your money maybe if you can't find a buyer. So it's not also a low risk kind of investment. So it's not a great investment. However, it might well go up in value up to a certain point. So it's not the worst investment in the world. If you look at like a table of the last 100 years and you look at the best investments versus the worst investments, you tend to find that it's done better than a lot of investments, but it can't compete with the very best investments. How can I help you? In two ways. First of all, are you an expat, a high net wealth individual, or just somebody who lives in a part of the world where it's difficult to get access to quality investment solutions? In which case, go onto my website on adamfayed.com and find out more. If you don't fit into any of those categories, then in which case there's a range of free material on my website, on this YouTube channel, and indeed on my Quora, where I get over 200 or have received over 231 million views in the last few years. And finally, if you want to actually read my thoughts in more detail, go onto Amazon and find my book on there.